Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Welcome to Ahavat Shalom. Great to see all of you here. We're going to have a wonderful service this evening. Special welcome to those who are watching the live stream from wherever you are. Shabbat Shalom to you as well. I'm Rabbi Matt Berger. I'm joined on the bima with our soloists, Allison Rosoff, and down at the piano, Joy Katzen-Guthrie. Wish all of you a happy 4th of July weekend. We're going to be opening our Kabbalat Shabbat service with the words of Yedid Nefesh, which you'll find right on the screen. Heart's delight, source of mercy, draw your servant into your arms. Yedid Nefesh, Avarakaman, Avarakaman, Mishok Abdecha, El Ritzonecha, El Ritzonecha. Yedid Nefesh, Avarakaman, Avarakaman, Mishok Abdecha, El Ritzonecha, El Ritzonecha. Yarutz Abdecha, Kimoaya, Yishachaveh, El Muladarecha. Yedid Nefesh, Avarakaman, Avarakaman, Mishok Abdecha, El Ritzonecha, El Ritzonecha. Beautiful arrangement by Craig Taubman. We're going to get ready to light the Shabbat candles. You'll find the blessing on page 2, but first we'll sing Light These Lights.
Oh, hear my prayer. Oh, hear my prayer. I sing to you. Be gracious to the ones I love, and bless them with goodness and mercy and peace. Oh, hear my prayer to you. Let us light these lights and see the way to you, and let us say Amen. Let us
when I was going to figure that out. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Holy One, we ask you to spread your shelter of peace, your Sukkot Shlomecha, throughout the world and especially over Ukraine as the battle continues to rage. May the Ukrainians' health, both bodily and emotionally, their homes and their lands, be once again protected and safe. And let us always consider and always hope to do our part by being loving, by being generous, open, and tolerant. And we hope and pray that peace will come soon and in our own days to the land of Ukraine. We're going to continue on page 24, and here you'll find the words of Shalom Aleichem, which speaks to the additional soul that many people believe accompany us for the 24 hours of Shabbat, and it's centered on the Malachim, the messengers or angels in our lives.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Asharet, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malachei Amachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Moachem Shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malachei Amlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruchuni Shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malachei Amlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzidchem Shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malachei Amlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
And on the next page, you'll find words of praise, the Chatzi or half Kaddish.
Yitgadal v'yitkadash Shmei Rabbah B'yamad Yivrach Yurtei v'yamlich Malchutei B'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayei dekol Beit Yisrael Bagala Bagala u'v'zman kariv v'yimaru Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah mevarach lehalam u'almei amaya yitbarach yibarach v'yishtabach v'yipa'ar v'yiroman v'yinasei v'yidhadar v'yidaleh v'yidhalal Shmei dekudesha brichu לעילא מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה תמירן בעמה ויאמרו amen.
Let's rise now for the words of Shema and its blessings as we continue with the call to prayer. Let's read together on 31 for creation. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows. Your wisdom sets the way on which time and season glide. Your breath guides the sail of the stars. Creator of the tide of time and light, you guide the current of day into night. As heaven spans to infinity, you set its course for eternity. Praised are you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows. Baruch atah Adonai, Ha'ma'ariv Aravim. And a prayer of love on 33. Wisdom and wonder, passion and instruction, story and symbol. All these things your Torah gives to us. The more we devote ourselves to it, the more it grows and gives. What could be a truer token of your abiding love than this holiest of your works in the living language that gives it form? Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael. Before we sing Shema, we'll sing Open Up Our Eyes by Jeff Clapper.
Open up our eyes, teach us how to live, fill our hearts with joy and all the love you have to give. Gather us in peace as you lead us to your name, and we will know that you are one. Open up our eyes, teach us how to live.
Teach us how to live.
Fill our hearts with joy and all the love you have to give. Gather us in peace as you lead us to your name, and we will know that you are one.
seated, and we'll continue chanting the words of the Shema, you shall love Adonai, the words of the Ahavta on 36. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha v'chol levavcha v'chol nafshecha u'v'chol me'odecha v'hayu advarim ha'elem asher anochi mitzavcha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shiftecha b'veitecha uvlechtecha b'derech u'shokbecha u'pkumecha u'kshartam le'ot al yadecha v'hayu letotafot bein einecha uchtavtam al mezuzot beitecha u'visharecha leman tizkeru v'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'tem kedoshim le'Elohechem ani Adonai Elohechem asher hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim liot lachem Elohim ani Adonai Elohechem. Let's read on page 39 as a prelude to our song for freedom, Mi Chamocha. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we are taught. Forever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt. There is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness. There is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands, marching together. Continue with Who is Like You, God. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai Mi chamocha nedar ba'kodesh Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai Mi chamocha nedar ba'kodesh norati lo Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai Mi chamocha nedar ba'kodesh Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai Mi chamocha nedar ba'kodesh norati lo Osei Melech norati lo Osei Melech. Thus it is said, Adonai redeemed Jacob from a hand stronger than his own. Praise are you, Adonai, for redeeming Israel. Baruch atah Adonai, Ga'al Yisrael. We'll continue now with a song and a prayer for shelter. Hashkivenu, grant, O God, that we may lie down in peace. This arrangement by Matovu.
Hashkivenu Shalom, ve'amidenu shomreinu lechaim. Uvros aleinu sukat shlomecha, uvros aleinu sukat shlomecha. Shelter us beneath thy wings, O Adonai. Guard us from all harmful things, O Adonai. Keep us safe throughout the night, till we wake with morning's light. Teach us, God, wrong from right. Amen.
Blessed are you, Adonai, guardian of Israel, whose shelter of peace is spread over us, over all your people Israel, and over Jerusalem. Baruch atah Adonai, haparei sukat shalom aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael ve'al Yerushalayim. Let's rise now for our standing prayers, the words of the tefillah, which begin on page 46. God, open up our lips.
Adonai, sifatai tiftachu fi hilatecha. Eternal God, open my lips that my mouth may declare your glory. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'chonei Hakol, V'zocher Chastei Avot v'Imaot, U'mevii Gula livnei v'neihem, Lema'an Shemo be'ahava, Melech Ozer u'Moshiach u'Magin. Baruch atah Adonai, Magin Avraham, ve'ezrat Sarah. Atah gibor le'olam Adonai, Mechayei Yaakov, atah rav laHoshia, morid hatal, Mechachel chayim bechesed, Mechayei Yaakov berachamim rabim, Somech noflim ve'rofei cholim, umatir asurim, umechayem emunato, lishenei afar, michamocha ba'al gevurot, umido melach, melech memit mechayeh, umatzmiach Yeshua, v'neman atah lecha chayot hakol. Baruch atah Adonai, mechayeh hakol.
Atah kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, u'kadoshim b'kol yom yalucha selah. Baruch atah Adonai, ha'el hakadosh. Feel free to be seated. We'll continue with the Emsaot, the blessings in the middle of the tefillah. First, for the holiness of Shabbat. Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh HaShabbat. Prayer asking that God's presence remains with all of us wherever we live, but especially in the land of Israel in Zion. Baruch atah Adonai hamachazir shechinatzo l'tzion. And for gratitude and things we're thankful for, we offer the words of Hoda'ah. Baruch atah Adonai hatov shimcha u'lecha na'eh lechodot. And for our time of reflection and meditation, Allison's going to lead us in an arrangement of Shalom Rav, the prayer of peace found on page 60.
Shalom Rav, HaYisrael Hamcha, Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav, HaYisrael Hamcha, Tasim
To words of healing, you'll find the prayer Mishaberach, God the One who blesses, on page 253 in your prayer book, Mishkan Tefillah, or right on the screen. So we think of the following individuals, especially at this time, for strength, for courage, and ultimately for healing. So we call to mind Yonatan Reuven Ben Rivka, Charlie Burke, Babs Brown, Dino Christoulakis, Manuel Cruz, Eddie Deerfield, Sylvia Eisner, Evelyn Edelman, Rob Edelman, Corrine Fairfield, Harry Fleisch, John Friedman, Denise Freifeld, Leah Gottlieb, David Heron, Don Hirschman, Nick Martin, Arnold Miller, Melissa Miller, William Miller, Michael Ranzino, Rabbi Avram Reifer, Stephanie Ross, Dennis Schulman, Cyril Shagrin, Lori Sheath, Jeff Stark, John Walsh, Sharon Worster, and Sophia Young. Are there any other names you'd like to add for healing? Please. Thank you.
My father, George Stark.
Mishaberach Avotenu Mikor HaBracha Limotenu. May the source of strength sheberach imotenu mikor habracha leavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
One day, Abe was sitting on a park bench when he sees his friend Jack walk on over along with another gentleman. Jack says to Abe, "Let me introduce you to my friend from the old country, Shane Ferguson." Abe wonders, Shane Ferguson? So how'd you end up with a name like that? "Well," Shane said, "in the old country, my name was Model Rosenzweig. However, my uncle, who arrived in America about 10 years before me, he said I should tell immigration that my name is Morris Rose. So for the entire trip, when I was sailing across the Atlantic, I practiced my new name, Morris Rose. Morris Rose. Morris Rose. I even asked some of the American sailors on board to say it to make sure that I could pronounce it correctly. When I finally arrived at Ellis Island in New York, I was standing in the immigration line for hours with everyone else, but I was worried about everything. So when the official finally asked me for my name, I said, Shane Ferguson, which in Yiddish means I forgot already. Of course, the official, he wrote down what he thought he had heard, thus I'm Shane Ferguson. It's an old joke, but a classic. Turns out, contrary to popular opinion, immigration procedures at Ellis Island didn't include questions like, what's your name? In reality, the immigration official just cross-checked the new arrivals' names to ensure they matched up to the ship's manifest. In fact, this very joke about Shane Ferguson was first included in a Jewish humor book written in 1969. But in the book, the joke was about a Yiddish actor who took a train out to California to become a movie star, and of course, forgot his name when he was in front of a famous Hollywood producer. As it turns out, all of these stories about the insensitivity of Ellis Island officials changing names left and right never really happened. And while I'm sure that there were certain immigration officials that were more brusque than others, changing names wasn't in their regular activity. Nevertheless, it's become a foundational legend or myth regarding new Jewish immigrants when they arrived in America. Like many of you, I learned about this myth long ago, probably when I was back in religious school. Historically, it most likely started in the years following the 1965 Immigration and Nationality Act. This act, which eliminated discriminatory immigration quotas for those emigrating from Southern or Eastern Europe, it was actually signed by President Lyndon Johnson on Ellis Island, even though by then most of the buildings, which included a huge complex for a hospital, had been long abandoned by that time. In all likelihood, the legend about Ellis Island grew out of an ambivalence about Jewish last names. To be sure, many of them, like Model Rosenzweig's, were hard for the average person to pronounce. And it was probably a little bit easier for Jewish immigrants to gain a foothold in America if they changed their surnames, whether they were looking for a particular job or they were trying to stave off humiliation either for themselves or perhaps their kids, or discrimination at school. The dilemma of Jewish name changing was actually given an entire chapter in Dara Horn's powerful book of essays, People Love Dead Jews. Ms. Horn gave an incredible lecture at Ahavat Shalom earlier this year, back in March at our annual speaker fundraiser. And though she's been speaking about the Ellis Island myth since about 2014 in various essays and talks, it wasn't until the essay collection was published in 2021, People Love Dead Jews, that people started taking umbrage at her remarks. In an article for the Jerusalem Post that came out last year, the writer Andrew Silo Carroll, he spoke about how his father had changed his last name. Before his father died, they spent some time poring over family documents, some dating back to the 19th century, and he found out that his actual last name was originally Karolchuk, which was a pretty popular Polish last name at the time. He writes, Jewish immigrants came to America. They found a new country, a new language, and an entirely new alphabet. So much was lost in translation. And given the choice between the misery they left behind in the old country and the opportunities available to them, even in an intolerant America, their generation felt that losing their last name was a palatable trade-off. Jewish survival has long depended on our ability to change and to adapt. In the first century, the rabbis of Yavna in the land of Israel created what I call Judaism 2.0, a rebranding of Jewish tradition, far less dependent on having a central synagogue or temple in the holy city of Jerusalem. Fast forward about 2,000 years to the 20th century, numbers of Jewish leaders like David Grum and Goldie Meyerson Hebraicized their last names. They became David Ben-Gurion and Golda Meir. This changed the calculus from changing surnames due to discrimination or potential discrimination to unabashedly owning their own Jewish identities in a very positive way. To this day, Ellis Island still represents America, the melting pot, and for good reason. A full 40% of Americans can trace their family's arrival to this country through that very small island, just about 1,500 feet from another island that's well known, the Statue of Liberty. It was the gateway to the United States, which offered unprecedented freedom to Jewish immigrants. In the old country, America was called the Goldena Medina, which is the golden land, because they were at least so told that the streets were paved or lined with gold. So much for that being the case. But America did have at least three very distinct advantages at the turn of the 20th century. One, there was far less anti-Semitism here than in Europe, and certainly no pogroms or government-sanctioned violence to contend with. Two, it was probably much easier to earn a living here, as Jews weren't barred from many skilled professions or guilds as they were back in Europe. And three, America was the first country in the world to give Jews equal rights right from the start. This weekend we celebrate the 246th anniversary of America. Way back in 1776, only about 2,000 Jews lived here, a very, very small amount. Yet all of them enjoyed unprecedented civil and religious freedom, because the Declaration of Independence said all men are created equal. And while it probably would have been much better if our founding fathers included women and all men, including African Americans, it still inspired other nations to follow its lead. For just over a decade later, in 1789, France wrote the Declaration of the Rights of Man and of the Citizen, which gave Jews living in France citizenship, a first for the continent of Europe. While the Declaration of Independence spoke in quite general terms about equality, the Constitution was more specific, establishing freedom of religion as the law of the land. For this reason, when President George Washington decided to visit a very special synagogue called Touro Synagogue in Newport, Rhode Island, in August 1790, it was a watershed moment for Jewish Americans. When he arrived, the president, they called it the warden of the congregation, presented Washington with a message of welcome from the Jews of Newport, as they called it. They said in the letter, "Deprived as we have been of the invaluable rights of free citizens, we now, with a deep sense of gratitude to God, behold a government which offers bigotry no sanction and persecution no assistance." These beautiful and poetic words, written by Moses Sykes, have become an important part of the American literary canon. Washington's letter of response was delivered the very same day. I guess he was someone who really wanted to get things done quickly. Washington reinforced the ideal of religious liberty in American life. He echoed the same words and added that our greatest responsibility as Americans is to act ourselves as good citizens. I like this message, especially as it included a quote from the prophet Micah, who envisioned a time at some point in the future where everyone would sit under their own vines and fig trees and no one would be afraid. For Washington, good citizenship was more than about tolerating others. Rather, it was about giving others our respect and support, even if we disagree with their views. We need a lot more of that now, being a good citizen. And perhaps we should aspire to be, as our 41st President George H.W. Bush put it, a kinder, gentler nation. Jewish literature is replete with this message, but periodic reminders never hurt anyone. In Leviticus, we're told, love your neighbor as yourself. In the Sifra, which was an early collection of commentaries, a rabbi named Akiva called this mitzvah or sacred obligation the central theme of the Torah. And no less than King David taught, the world is built on kindness. To put it simply, the lesson is just be nice. Even Hillel and Shammai, who about 2,000 years ago disagreed more than anyone else throughout the Talmud, based their relationship on mutual respect. When asked to distill Judaism into a single soundbite, Hillel said, "What's hateful to you, don't do to your neighbor." While his rabbinic foil, the sage Shammai, said, "Greet everyone with a cheerful countenance." Even though they argued a lot, in the end, they knew that they could rely on one another for support. In fact, even some of their kids married within the other one's family. And that's what being a good citizen, the niceness, is all about. July 4th is a time to remember American roots and to celebrate the religious freedom we've enjoyed, even if some recent events and Supreme Court decisions have put a strain on this right and privilege. So whether our families arrived long ago at Ellis Island, like mine did, or were here well before that, let's follow the advice of our first president, George Washington, who said, strive to be a good citizen, as well as the elder President Bush, who wanted us to become a kinder, gentler nation. This is what Judaism asks of us too, because whenever we're nice, it's good for the community as a whole. Shabbat Shalom and happy 4th of July. We're going to continue our service with the words of Aleinu, the adoration that you'll find on the screens or on the bottom of page 282. Let's rise as the ark is opened.
Aleinu l'shabech la'adon ha'kol, la'atid gedula le'otzer bereshit, shelo sanu k'goyei haratzot, ve'lo samanu k'mishpechot ha'adama, shelo sam k'chinu kahem, ve'gol aleinu k'chol hamonam, ve'anaknu korim u'mishtachavim u'modim livnei melech malchei hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu v'ne'emar v'haya Adonai lemelech al kol ha'aretz bayom hahu yeh Adonai echad u'shemo
You'll find the words to Mourner's Kaddish, Words of Praise, on page 294. As we think of families in the first 30 days of mourning, the period of Shloshim, as we remember with love and affection Scott Loesch, friend of Denise Freifeld and Mitch Freifeld, Alfred Moratelli, brother-in-law of Deborah Arnold, Ellie Doff, mother of Melissa Doff, and Lysel Schick, mother of Nancy Greenberg. We also mark the yahrzeit, the anniversary of passing of loved ones. On this Shabbat, we remember Bernard Aiken, Betty Barnett, Jeffrey Baum, Patricia Bild, Al Biller, Ethel H. Blumenfeld, Sadie Bronstein, Al Bronstein, Nathan Brindis, Ralph Cohen, Fritzie Cohen, Elizabeth Donaldson, Jack Friedman, Jeffrey Garfield, Ethel Guerin, S. David Gordon, Nathan Greenberg, William R. Groom, Meredith Hamill, Sylvia Karp, Murray Paul Kent, David Levin, Grauman Marks, Jacqueline Nemzow, Misha Rabinowitz, Abner Rubin, Rhoda L. Rothman, Arnold Sacker, Victor Siegel, Ann Turner, Joanne White, and Elka Wolstein. Are there any other names to add for yahrzeit at this time? We say, Zichronam Livracha, may the memories of all of these good people continue to be a blessing in their loved ones' lives. As we rise together to offer the words of Kaddish praise. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah, v'yalma divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayei dekol beit Yisrael, b'agalav v'zman kariv v'imru.
Amen.
Yehei shmei rabbah mivarach le'alam ulamei almaya, yitvarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal, shemei dekudasha b'richu. La'elam yinkol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, ta'amiran v'yalma v'imru. Amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, Chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mramav, hu yaseh shalom. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. May the one who causes peace in the heavens cause peace to descend on us, Israel, and throughout the world. So we say, amen.
V'imiru, 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 amen. V'imiru, 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 amen.
Feel free to be seated. We'll continue with the Kiddush blessing over the fruit of the vine that you'll find on page 5 as well. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'ratzavanu, v'shabbat kodsho, v'yavahu v'ratzon hingilanu, zikaron lema'aseh v'reshit, ki hu yom tefilah l'mikra'ei kodesh, zecher l'tziat Mitzrayim, ki anu v'aparta v'otanu kidashta mikol ha'amim, v'shabbat kodshecha v'avahu v'ratzon inatanu. Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh ha-Shabbat. L'chaim, to life. All right, please join us in the Motzi. Motzi lechem min haaretz, we give thanks to God for bread. Our voices rise in song together as our joyful prayer is said. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. Say b'tevo and enjoy. So, for the announcements this evening, my pleasure to call forward Paula Rosoff, newly elected to our Board of Trustees as our Vice President. Welcome and Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone here and at home. I'd like to thank Rabbi Matt for another very meaningful Shabbat service tonight, and also, of course, for Allison and Joy for providing the beautiful music to enhance our prayer. Thanks also to Mike and Nicole Skalka for being our tech team in the back tonight. Of course, it's summertime, not that much happening, but there is a Sisterhood Honey fundraiser that's now underway. There's a flyer in your pamphlet if you're here tonight, and if you're at home, it's on the website and on the emails that are coming down. It's a wonderful way to send a High Holy Day greeting to your friends and family, to receive a beautiful jar of honey and a little gift box with a note that will have your name signed on it, and it's a wonderful way to support our sisterhood. We'd like you also to join us on Friday, July 15th for a Shabbat picnic at 6 p.m. hosted by Brotherhood and Sisterhood. It'll be followed by services at 7:30. Look for an email that will be coming with an RSVP link on it, and you'll have to click on that to make your reservation. Following service, please join us for an Oneg Shabbat in the social hall. For those at home, hopefully you'll have a little something afterwards too. And Shabbat Shalom, and have a wonderful and safe July 4th.
Thank you so much, Paula, for the Shabbat messages. And Allison Joy and I thought it'd be very appropriate to end the service with America the Beautiful. It's also in the prayer book on pretty much the very last page, page 377, but it's right on the screens as well. Let's rise for this. The American flag is always on stage right in synagogues.
Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, for amber waves of grain, for purple mountains' majesties, above the fruited plain. America, America, God shed His grace on thee, and crown thy good with brotherhood, from sea to shining sea.
Feel free to be seated, and we'll conclude with our prayer for health and well-being. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kishanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al shmirat hanefesh, for the mitzvah to protect life and health. Thank you so much for joining us this Shabbat evening. Hopefully you'll all have a wonderful, pleasant, and safe 4th of July weekend. Shabbat Shalom, one and all.